Joining us now, Sebastian Gorka, of course, military and intelligence analyst, former deputy assistant to President Donald Trump. Delighted that he's joining us now. Sebastian, it's always good to talk to you on another sad day for this country, but to listen to some of the commentators, this is just something, we're gonna occasionally have to go through. It's, our law enforcement is doing what they can, but Donald Trump is really the problem because he's politicizing everything.
Morning, Laura. Congratulations on the new show. That's the defeatism. That's Europe. That's the political and cultural suicide that the left would have us commit and try to convince us is the only way for the last 8 years. The fact is that we will crush this enemy just as we crushed the Nazis, just as we defeated the Soviet Union. This is a new form of totalitarianism, this time a religiously fueled one. Our military is stacking the jihadis like cordwood in the Middle East. Now we have to make sure that we don't become what we see in Europe, a nation that is plagued by these kinds of attacks again and again and again. And that's why the immigration stop is so important, and that's why the president wants to kill this absurd lottery for green cards in which anybody who has a high school degree and 2 years of work experience can roll the dice and come to America and live here. It's insanity.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because the president had already put that on the table in the administration's priorities list earlier this month. People want to give these DACA kids a path to regularization in the United States, some type of legalization. Then a number of things would have to happen. Ending chain migration, which is a huge problem, exploding the immigrant population in the United States. So ending chain migration, the RAISE Act, which includes getting rid of chain migration, E-Verify, all those things that have to be in place along with more border agents, et cetera. Why do you think, Sebastian, Uzbekistan was never on that list of problem countries that were subject to the travel ban?
Well, that list, the original 7 nations of the original travel moratorium, was based upon an Obama White House analysis of those nations where there are the greatest numbers of jihadis, and also those nations that cannot verify for us adequately the identity of the individuals applying for U.S. visas. So it's a statistical analysis, and simply looking at recent attacks, Uzbekistan wasn't at the top. Of course, it was many, many other countries, such as Iraq, such as Syria. It was just, the threat analysis that we inherited was those 7 nations. We dropped Iraq because Iraq convinced us that they now can provide the fidelity of data on the applicants that we need. That's the very simple explanation, Laura.
Why is it our obligation to allow individuals to enter the country, given how difficult it is, really? It's really difficult to predict who might be self-radicalized years from now.
Well, it isn't. I mean, it isn't our obligation. I'm sure the question is a rhetorical one.
Yeah.
The left would have us believe that living in America is a human right. That's why you had the presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton, give a private speech to a room full of bankers in which she actually said her vision is to see a Western Hemisphere without borders, meaning from, Chile up to Canada, there are no borders. At that point, America as a concept ceases to exist. So what the president has done is reassert the sine qua non of sovereignty, which is that being an American is a privilege, not a right, and he gets to decide. It's in the Constitution. It's in our administrative law. There's one individual who decides who gets to enter the United States, and it's not a judge in the Ninth Circus Court. It's not the legislature on the Hill. It is the President of the United States who decides by which standards you can apply to come to America and become a resident or a citizen.
Yeah, I mean, I think just, when you look at the Salafist ideology, the hateful dynamic to it. I mean, the Constitution, as many legal scholars have noted, does not preclude the President of the United States, if he so determines, from using a religious test. People just spout this stuff like, well, you can't use a religious test. Actually, there's nothing prohibiting the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, from using a religious test if, in fact, we determine that there is no real definitive way to stop these attacks from happening. And, I mean, that is extreme, but so is seeing people's body parts strewn about the sidewalk, the bike path in Manhattan yesterday, reading about those grisly scenes. That's really the thing that's incomprehensible.
Yeah, as a person of faith, you know very well the distortions that our constitutional republic has been misrepresented by in the last 30, 40 years. I mean, the separation of church and state has been completely misrepresented in the last few decades. It has nothing to do with saying that religion has no place in the governing of this nation. On the contrary, why is the word creator found in our founding documents? So it simply says there is no state religion in this country. That's what the founding fathers meant. So yes, I mean, we have to push back on the cultural distortions that have been foisted upon us, basically because the left realized in 1968 there was going to be no Marxist revolution in the United States. So what did they do? They captured academia, they captured the high schools, they captured the colleges, and that's why we have these misrepresentations today. But you know, with Donald Trump in the Oval Office, you know, political correctness has been given its marching orders.
Why is he allowing 45,000 refugees into the country this year? I find that to be so disturbing. I'm sorry. He comes in and he was so good on this issue. It looked like he was at least going to be halved to 20,000, from 50 to 20,000. But 20,000 is what it historically was. But now it's 45,000. And from what I can understand, Kelly months ago was saying it should be 0 to 1. And now we got 45,000 people coming in, overwhelmingly Islamic. To me, that's insanity.
Yeah, you'd have to ask the president. I would suspect that it has a lot to do with foggy bottom in the State Department.
Yeah, you have to make nice with other countries, right? We have to keep up our alliances.
Right. There's a culture. I mean, remember, State Department is a behemoth. It's 75,000 people, a large proportion of whom really do not put the U.S. national interest front and center, but they want to have some kind of kumbaya, multiculturalism, multilateralism. And we haven't changed that culture. I know it's only month 9 of the administration, but yes, I think the State Department and the DOJ, these are agencies that are as much of a swamp as the GOP rhinos on the Hill.
Yeah, General Kelly responded to this. We'll play it a little bit later about the State Department not having key Trump officials in place. They have these old career holdovers in critical positions like the Asian desk, Central Asian, South Asian desk, and also the Mexican. Southern Hemisphere has no Trump person in, as well as we're renegotiating NAFTA. Before we let you go, Sebastian, it seems like that you can draw the line here, or maybe it's a Venn diagram is a better way to describe it. The individuals who are all for the WTO and NAFTA and GATT and the South Korean free trade deal and are for more generous immigration, these are all the same people who are coming out today criticizing Trump for politicizing the terror attack, because their view, as you said, this is a globalist worldview where American lives and American understanding sometimes has to be compromised in order for the greater global good. And, you know, whether it's free trade, global free trade, bettering Bangladeshis' lives, even if it hurts American lives, American workers' lives, that's the same mindset you described of Hillary: open borders, open markets, not really interested in pinpointing blame on Islamist ideology.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the reason I wrote my book, Defeating Jihad. We have to reinsert common sense into the function of national security. It's not about making other countries happy. And I mean, just that moment when we stepped out of the Paris Accords, when the president said,
great.
I was elected to be Yeah, I was elected to be the president
Awesome.
of the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
I love that.
Yes, I mean,
That was such a great line.
How is that surprising?
No.
How did that shock somebody?
Sebastian,
He's
I
the
think
president of the United States.
that speech in Paris, those remarks in his speech at the United Nations, where he said, my job is to look out for my people, and your job is to look out for your people, and sometimes we're going to work together,
Right.
but sometimes we're not going to. Those 2 points were among his best. I think the UN speech was his best speech this entire presidency.
Warsaw was great.
Oh, Warsaw was great. Well, I have many to choose from, but yeah, okay. All right, Sebastian. You always can get me on those. Sebastian Gorka, love having you on. Come on TV soon. We love having your voice and your analysis. Always clear-eyed. Thank you so much. We'll take a break.